District 6 in the Western communities. A successful small business owner in Wellington, the former mayor of Wellington, and an active community leader. Kathy is a founding member of the original Palms West Chamber of Commerce, a former board member of the Central Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce, and a longtime member of the Wellington Chamber of Commerce. Kathy?
Good afternoon, and thank you for having us here today. I moved down to Wellington in 1979 and realized within a matter of months that my children were going to school 3 towns away. So that summer we organized the parents around the pool every day and said, we're going to petition the school district. We need schools in Wellington. And we made our voices heard in this fall of 1980. And the first school opened here that year. They delivered 9 portables to an empty lot on La Mirada Circle in Big Blue, and Wellington Elementary was born. And we were thrilled to have the 9 portables. Wellington was a very brand new community, and it had so much potential. And everyone banded together to make a difference. In 1983, I opened my own business here in the Town Square Mall. And within months, 7 of us sat down, Dennis Witowski and Jess Santa Maria and Wanda Smith, and we said, you know, we really need a Chamber of Commerce. And we started the Palms West Chamber of Commerce, and I've served 22 of the last 32 years as a board member for the Chamber. In 1980, I went to wake my youngest son up for kindergarten, and he didn't wake up. He died 10 days later of spinal meningitis. And my world spiraled out of control for many months. That summer, I watched John and Renee Walsh on TV, dealing with the abduction of Adam and the ultimate outcome with Adam's head being found in the canal in North Florida. And there wasn't a lot that I paid attention to after my son Christian died, but I couldn't believe the anguish that they were in. And I wrote a letter to John and Renee, and I said, my son died in my arms, loved and cared for in a hospital, and it took me to my knees. I cannot imagine the anguish that you feel with the way you lost your son. And I said, I'm praying for you, and if I can ever be of help, please reach out to me. And a year later, they did. They wanted to start a fundraiser to change the laws in the state of Florida for abducted children. In 1980, you could report your car stolen, or your horse, or your dog, but you couldn't report a child for 72 hours, because regardless of age, every child was classified a runaway. So I met John and Rebecca in the spring of 82, and we did our first fundraiser that winter, and we raised $25,000 at a polo match at Palm Beach Polo and Country Club, and we thought we were doing great. I went on to work with them for the next 22 years, doing their fundraising here in Palm Beach County, and ultimately became the executive director of the Adam Walsh Children's Fund. And as many of you know, it went on to be hugely successful. It merged with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children in 2002, and became an international organization saving literally tens of thousands of children all over the world. In 2002, as I said, we merged with the National Center and relocated to Alexandria, Virginia. I chose not to move because Wellington was my home. I had gotten involved in the community with my business, K. Foster Designs, which I'm delighted to say is now 32 years in existence. It's paid a lot of bills for 4 children and 10 grandchildren, and I'm very proud to say I'm still working. I got involved in the first elections here in Wellington. The Acme Improvement District here in Wellington was the governing board from 1951 to 1979. 1989. In 1989, Tallahassee mandated that the Acme Improvement District open 2 seats to a public election. We had about 17,000 residents, and they felt that the residents' voices needed to be heard. There were 23 candidates for the 2 seats. I was the only woman, and I just said, I live here, I work here, my children go to school here, I think I understand what the residents would like. and I won with 48% of the vote over the other candidates. And I was sworn in that night because my opponent resigned on TV. So then it was you had to figure out what to do. I went to my first board meeting for the Acme Improvement District the next morning. They handed me a single piece of paper with 5 items on the agenda, and they said, all in favor. And I was just naive enough to know that that wasn't the way things were done. And I raised my hand and I said, how can you vote when there's no backup information? We tabled the meeting 4 consecutive times over the next 2 weeks until we finally started to do business the way we should, with backup information and public discussion. I went on to be chairman of the Acme Improvement District for the next 3 years, and we wrote a charter with many wonderful people, some of who are in this room, for the village of Wellington, and we took it to Tallahassee in '92 without success. We revised it slightly and took it back to Tallahassee in '94, and we were approved and became a municipality by public vote in December 31st of 1995. I went on to be a candidate in the first municipal elections, and I was elected as the first mayor of Wellington. I served 11 years in public office, and that gives me a unique opportunity and unique experience to bring to this county commission race. I have 35 years experience living and working in this community as a small business owner and as an elected official, and I've served in national and international nonprofits all over the world. I can bring that kind of leadership to our county commission. We have so many critical items facing us today. We have 10,000 homes in the pipeline as we stand here, being proposed for the Seminole Ridge Pratt Whitney corridor. We don't have adequate roads today for the people who live here. We don't have adequate drainage in severe storms for the people who live here. These issues need to be addressed on a regional basis before we add 30 or 40,000 new residents. We need to develop work centers here and in the western communities and the Glades so that people can go to work going west instead of going east. The exits from Seminole Pratt Whitney are Okeechobee Boulevard, North Lake, and Southern. You know if you commute now that those roads are very, very difficult in the mornings. We need to have traffic flow going toward the west. So we need to work hard with the Business Development Board and community leaders and build rapport on the county commission so we can accomplish what needs to happen in District 6, which is more work opportunities to the west and well-planned managed growth and development. And thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Kathy. Next up, Melissa McKinley. She is a Palm Beach County legislative aide, mother of 3, and volunteer and award-winning child advocate.
I took it quite literally when they said send in a 2-line bio, so let me expand upon that a little bit. Good afternoon, my name is Melissa McKinley, and I am also a candidate for County Commission in District 6. And Kathy, let me just say that that's the second time I've heard you tell that story about your son, and it breaks my heart every time I hear it. I'm sorry that you had to go through that. I have lived in this area, in this county, since 2004. I moved my family from the west coast of Florida over to Wellington back then, about 10 years ago. But I've been a Florida resident since 1977. I was 6 years old when I moved here. I am a product of our public schools, starting from the first grade all the way through my proud years as a Seminole at Florida State University. I received my bachelor's degree in political science and sociology with dual minors in mathematics and economics, so pretty well-rounded. But I have spent 20 years as a volunteer and as a public servant to this community and to the state of Florida as a whole. I currently serve right now as the legislative aide to the Palm Beach County Office of Legislative Affairs, where I've been a proud member of the team that brought back just this session alone nearly $18 million just for District 6. I worked with Marcia Andrews as a member of her Glades Career Readiness Roundtable to receive that $426,000 for the Glades Career Center, which was quite an accomplishment since we didn't really start rolling that ball until about January, which is pretty late in the process. But we also brought back, and I didn't bring it with me today, but I'm sure some of you have seen the water pipe that I like to carry around with me. We brought back about $1 million to start the process of replacing some of the antiquated water infrastructure that our residents out in the Glades are enduring every day, as well as money to improve the roads. I sat down at a regional planning workshop with members of the Belgrade community, and two little girls got up and presented their priorities, and I was touched that their number one priority was they didn't want to drive on bumpy roads on the school bus on their way to school because it made them nauseous. So we're working to make sure that not only the business community has its needs met as far as safe roads, but also that the little kids don't have to get sick on a car ride. My past experience includes service as an aide to United States Senator Bill Nelson here in his West Palm Beach office. I've also worked for the U.S. House of Representatives, the Florida House of Representatives, and I spent 5 years doing capital budgeting and grant writing for the Sarasota County Finance and Budget Department. On the volunteer level, first let me commend this chamber for the work that you're doing with working with the at-risk children at the academy and volunteering your services as a mentor. It was about 10 years ago that through some of my volunteer work I was introduced to the subject of juvenile justice and gender-specific programming. And happy to say about 7 years ago we brought a program to Palm Beach County that works with the girls in the detention center, teaching them, doing intervention and education and mentoring programs for the girls while they're in the detention center, and trying to follow up with services from that. From that, I developed a passion for juvenile justice. I sit on the 15th Circuit Juvenile Justice Advisory Board with Marcia, also on the Reentry Task Force. I've been a vocal advocate for the needs of the homeless, serving on the legislative committee for our local homeless advisory board. I also serve on the Community Health Planning and Safety Net Network, which is a program that works with all of the community health care clinics and the hospitals to make sure that all of our residents have access to health care services when they need it. I've also been for about 18 years now a member of the Junior League. I'm very proud of that. I chaired their statewide board of advocacy board, which is a group that represented about 15,000 women. This past session, as a volunteer, I worked on a bill that allows children who are homeless, that are certified as homeless by the school district, to be able to consent for their own health care. These are kids that are 16 and 17 years old, that the only way they could get health care is if they were facing an emergency and showed up in one of our ERs. So hopefully now they can take a proactive role in the services that they need. It also became apparent when we were doing that these same children, if they were the victim of sexual assault, they could not consent for their own forensic medical exam. So we went ahead and we amended that onto the bill and we passed that. So these kids, if they're victims or if they just need health care, that they have an avenue to get the services that they need. One of the projects I'm most proud of that I've worked on both as a volunteer and through the county was the development of the Butterfly House at Wellington Regional Medical Center. That facility serves all of the residents of Palm Beach County that are victims of sexual assault. It was a bipartisan effort. We also worked with the nonprofits and the business community to get services donated, to get funding from our from Congress. We got funding from the state, and of course the county kicked in services as well. I believe it's that kind of collaborative effort that we need on the county commission. We need somebody that can reach across the aisle and work with leaders in all levels of government. We need somebody that can work with the business community. We need somebody that can work with the nonprofits. And we also need somebody that can work well with the other members of the county commission to make sure that all citizens are represented, especially those in District 6, and especially those that are in the Glades. I feel from what I'm hearing on the campaign trail, there's a lot of people that feel that they haven't had a voice for the last 7 years, that a lot of needs have gone unmet. I want to make sure that we can bring that voice back to the district and help out everybody, not just the wealthiest in our community, but also the poorest. But in closing, I would just like to add the final title that I'm most proud of, and that's Mom. I'm right now raising 3 children on my own. Brady is 16, Macy's 14, and God help me, Annika will be 13 on Saturday. I'm happy to report that they are benefiting our local economy right now. I dropped them off at the mall on the way here. But I do what I do. I stay up. You know, this campaign trail, it's hard. It's hard as a mom, and it's hard when you have grandchildren and children and every other demand that we have. You know, you have to find the time. Last night it was 4 o'clock in the morning. I finally got to go to sleep. But I do what I do because I believe in it. I believe in the process. I believe that I need to do what I can for my family, for your family, for our seniors, for our homeless, for everybody out there that needs a service. We need to be able to provide it, and we need to be able to provide the opportunity so our children can succeed, so our families can succeed, and so our community can succeed. And I look forward to a further debate, answering questions, and hope that you all will come out and vote on August 26th, because that's the first election we have to go through. So anyhow, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Melissa. Next up, Michelle Santamaria. Michelle is a resident of Palm Beach County since 1970, has a master's in business administration, and a Juris Doctorate from the #1 trial advocacy law school in the nation. She is a former assistant state attorney in Palm Beach County and owns a small business focused on helping law enforcement officers across the county, including Federal Bureau of Investigation, keep our streets safe. Michelle.
Hello? Can you hear me? It's attached right here. It's real short. Is that all right? Okay, good. I feel like a podium is a blocker, and it takes away from communication. When I was a prosecutor, I generally pushed it aside as well, and so I want to be able to communicate effectively so you get to know me and I get to know you. So to start off right away, I want to learn more about each of you. So raise your hands nice and high. How many of you are from some geographical area outside of Wellington District 6? Came from somewhere before they made this their home? Nice and high, raise your hands. Okay, the vast majority of us came here. And it's good to find out reasons why. I also, from outside the area, my family came down here in 1977, when I was 9 months old, an infant, from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I talked to Dr. Randy beforehand, and you're also from Pennsylvania. When we were talking, please share with everybody what I learned about you after you came down to Boca Raton, and you chose to make Wellington your home. What did you tell me is the reason why you moved from Boca to Wellington? What was it about Wellington that you loved?
It's that small town feel and the family-oriented community that we have here.
Yeah. And many of us came to this area for that same reason. The small town feel, that's what we love. That's why my parents left Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. They wanted to get away from the crime. When we came down here, there wasn't much of anything. When you drive down Okeechobee, you look on both sides of the street and you'd see trees for miles. You didn't have to worry about traffic. We just cruised along. But it's not like that anymore. After coming from Pennsylvania, I grew up down here. I went to the schools even in Wellington. I started off junior kindergarten at King's Academy, which is no longer there. I was at Cherry Road. From there, I actually started in Wellington, at Wellington Elementary for kindergarten, first grade, and second grade. After that, in Royal Palm Beach, where I've continued to grow up, we finally got an elementary school, H.L. Johnson. So I was the first class there in third grade. And this year, if you don't know, it's our 30-year anniversary where they're going to unearth the time capsule and see, I don't even remember what we put back in there, but I'm curious, from 30 years ago, in October, we're going to see what we kids put back in there in the day. From there, I went to Crestwood Middle School, and then when it was time for high school, I've been here so long, they didn't even have a high school in Royal Palm Beach. So I went out to school in West Palm Beach. I have grown up in Palm Beach County, Florida, since I was 9 months old, aside from going away to school. University of Florida for my undergraduate in business, master's at Rollins College, master's in business administration, and then finally a law degree from Stetson Law School because it was the #1 trial advocacy law school. Immediately I came back to my hometown of Palm Beach County to do what I loved, which was at law school, trials. So I became a criminal prosecutor fighting crime here in Palm Beach County. It was a great opportunity to pursue my passion, which is learning about people, whether it's the victims of the crimes or the defendants. That gave me great insight and knowledge into our community to have conversations to people. Talk to a defense attorney in Palm Beach County, and you're going to have so much insight as to the deeper root of what causes crime. You've got to go down to the surface to find out why crimes occur, whether it's family problems that people grow up with, address that, how people are raised, whether it is drugs and drug rehabilitation. If we can get to the roots of the problem, we can prevent as opposed to react later. Those are some of the greatest skills that I developed while I was a prosecutor, learning what people needed, all sides. We had to be balanced. It wasn't gung-ho prosecution, send everybody to prison. You had to listen. Listen to the victims, listen to the mothers. You'd sometimes have moms who'd come up, their son or daughter is a defendant, and they'd actually say, please help him, I have no control, I want him to be sent to rehab. So the mom, who's the defendant's son, is on your side, but you need to listen to that information so you can actually help solve the problems at the deeper route. After becoming a criminal prosecutor, I then started my own business. Here we are at the Chamber of Commerce, and that's what I did. Based on my business background, my master's in business, my law degree in fighting crime, I took all of that knowledge and started a company based on a need that I had seen. When I left the state attorney's office, I had noticed sometimes witnesses had issues testifying. So I developed my own curriculum and became a teacher in another format. As a prosecutor, I taught the jury and the judge and the defense attorney. As a law enforcement witness teacher, I taught local law enforcement and started the company here in order for them to testify more effectively. If you can get witnesses to testify more effectively and not be manipulated, we can prevent crime from reoccurring here in Palm Beach County and throughout the United States. It was pretty exciting to start a company that, if you do your research, doesn't really exist. It's not like many other businesses where they're everywhere on every street corner. I started my own little baby company in my own hometown where I prosecuted crimes. It exploded throughout Florida, the United States, and within 2 years of starting the company, the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, picked it up to train their cellular analysis survey team. These are the best of the best FBI agents. They're not the first line FBI agents who are at Quantico. Instead, these are the violent crimes men and women who handle murder for hire, kidnapping, and they chose me. They had chosen another attorney 30 years out of Boston, and I was barely over 30 at the time. And once I trained them, they said, Michelle, we don't need to look any further. You're it. We want you every time for this team. So based on my experience, I've had the opportunity to see what affects local law enforcement, federal law enforcement, and the people of the community. What is the key? The key is each and every single one of you listening to what you have to say and actually going with the people. One of the big things that people don't like about politics is that the dividing line. Do you have a D? Do you have an R? But ultimately, we are all people of the state of Florida and District 6. What I was as a prosecutor and what I am now and what each of you are. The key is listening to you all and applying it. There are two things that I want to focus on and that I think everything stems from within Palm Beach County and District 6. One is honesty in government. How do we do that together? The Inspector General and making sure they're supported and are the watchdog, just like we prosecutors. If you don't have people prosecuting, people are going to commit a lot of crime. Second is the quality of life that you all came here for, that Dr. Randy came here from, that hometown feel that we want to listen to and maintain. Growth and development is going to happen, and it would be absurd to think that it's not. Technology happens. The key is to keep it compatible, intelligent, and responsible, so that when you come for that hometown feel and you look down the line later, you don't lose the very reason that we all came here for. So every day, we each are writing the own autobiography of our lives, but it takes a team effort. All elected officials, they're simply representatives of you, the people. So shout out loud, let us know what your thoughts and feelings are. How do you feel? Because it's really you that's up there. We just need to hear it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next up, we have Andrew Schaller. Andrew is the owner of Palm Beach Financial Exchange, an electronic banking company he founded in 1994 that has served more than 550 businesses across the United States and Puerto Rico. Mr. Schaller is a Republican candidate, has been a resident of District 6 since 1990 and a Palm Beach County resident since 1987. Andrew.
Hello, thank you for being here. We as candidates don't have anywhere near enough time to get in front of the people voters, so truly thank you for being here. Thank you to our hosts. I'd like to take this in just a little bit of a different direction. What you're doing as voters, and what I do also as a voter, is we are trying to determine who's the next best person to represent our best interests. So as a chamber here in a business, I'm going to ask you to take a business approach towards being your own HR department and think about who you want to hire to represent you. When you do that, I'm going to ask you to hold aside your personal relationships. I have many personal and few professional in this room. And I'm going to ask you to personally take a look at all of us as to who is most like you or who you would want to send into battle the most to represent you. First and foremost, I think we ought to understand what the job of county commissioner is. And there's only two responsibilities. The first is fiscal policy, raising the money, taxes, and spending the money. The second side of that is the governance policy. In our case out here, a very large focus has been on land use changes. When we take a piece of property from an agricultural piece to a commercial, industrial, residential, it changes the value of the land, and it has an impact on all of us, from where we shop, where we're going to drive, things of that nature. So what I'd like to do is give you my business background as well as my governmental experience so that you can decide, do I fit that job for you? And then you can tell others and hopefully vote for me as well. Number one, my personal background is I was a stockbroker, financial consultant. I handled all of the fixed income investing for the third largest thrift in the U.S. that was called First Nationwide Bank at all Palm Beach and Broward counties. I then was a regular stockbroker also, which was more speculative, and then I went to the conservative side. I started my own company in 1994. It's called Palm Beach Financial Exchange, located here in District 6. I've handled over 550 businesses across the U.S. and Puerto Rico. I handle reoccurring transactions for places like Gold's Gym, World's Gym, Powerhouse Gym, boat storage, mini storage condo associations, church tithing, property management, YMCA. If you figured it, I've either handled it or I'm about to handle it. With that, I've designed all my own software. I've had any piece of software that my customers have used or I've used inside of my business, with the exception of something like WordPerfect, something like that, have all come out of my head and my team's head. We've developed everything. I've handled over $1 billion of everybody else's money with an average ticket of $40 at a time. For many years, I had an unlimited unsecured line of credit with the Federal Reserve to be able to accomplish this. My company profile was used in the state of Tennessee to show the auditors how a recurring transaction company what it should look like. Very proud of that. That's my financial side. I've been handling for many years now, better than 26 years, been handling other people's money. That's first and foremost. I know how to say no. I know how to say yes. I pay paychecks. I pay insurances. I do everything that a business does continuously with employees for the last 20 years. On the governmental side, I started engaging with the county back in 1990 when I bought my home just on the other side of Lake Worth Road. Since that time, it's led me on a trip through, including the village of Wellington, trying to block Lyons Road through a small neighborhood, trying to block a development from changing their allowable number of homes from 72 to 100, successfully blocked that. Came to Wellington in 1999 and bought a piece of property over on Wellington Trace that I've invested my life savings and retirement in. It's a horse barn. I am the only candidate that lives in a barn, lives on an agricultural piece of property, and is 100% invested into this equestrian industry. With that, I wanted to put a wall around my property. I didn't like shadow box fences. It took me 1 year and 3 months to go through the village to finally get approval for a wall around my property. I was told there's no walls in Wellington. Well, I took the ULVC and I read through all the pages of it, top to bottom, and found out fountains were exempt from this wall requirement. So I put 210 feet of fountains across my front yard, and no horses ever left the property. I was told at that time there are no walls in Wellington. Well, look on some of the thoroughfares here and there, and you'll see now the shadow box fences that were dilapidated and disrepair are now replaced with something much nicer. I have a whole number of things that I can go through on what the issues that I've had with Wellington resolved very favorably to many of your advantage that you never even know about. With the county, I'm very happy to say that 3 weeks ago, after 6 years of a battle with the county for a road improvement program that they were doing the first time in the 100-year history of the county that was not consistent with their policies, they've opened up the bidding plans, and now the road will start sometime in the next 90 days. I put in 6 years into that. Sitting at the county commission, we talk about experience. I've been at every single county commission meeting that I possibly can over the last 6 years. Pretty much haven't missed anything. If I have, I watch it on TV. The valuable experience that you learn in the county commission cannot be exchanged for any other type of insurance. Any experience. The county has all 7 county commissioners vote on all 7 issues. So it's great to know your commissioner, it's not my district, but your commissioner has to have the support of minimum three other commissioners to be able to get anything done or anything stopped in your district. So you have to know the process. You also need to know how to fight, so to speak, how to advocate and how to align. Because again, you do need that other percentage of 3 people to promote whatever it is that you're looking to do. And in that, remember, there's 6 other commissioners who are advocating for that same little piece of the pie. Everybody thinks their district is important and nobody wants our taxes raised. So you have to understand how to work with the system. I can honestly say the experience that I've gained in the last 6 years of being in the chambers, I have spent more times, appeared in front of the board speaking 60, 70 times. I have more experience in any 1 month out of the last 6 years than all of my candidate opponents combined in their entire 6-year period. I look around during the issues of Minto and see my candidate opponents. I would look at all the Highland Dunes, on and on down the line. I've been to the cancer cluster meetings. I've been out to Lake Okeechobee for the Army Corps and the Herbert Hoover Dike. If you pick anything, I've been there. I know how the process works. I know what it means for having a special hearing. I know what it takes to advertise the meeting. Based upon that, I can put it all together. And I don't believe anybody has my drive and determination to compete with me as a candidate level that I can instantly put into place day one, knowing the system and my background together. I ask that you consider us as who you would want to send in to do battle. If you need an attorney, what research would you do? If you need somebody who's going to manage your money, what research would you do? And it's nice that sometimes your friends are those people, but most often you want the best person, maybe not the one that you have Sunday dinner with, something like that. So I ask you to consider your own best interest and elect the person that will reflect that with their best background. I have a candidate kickoff tomorrow night at the Grill at 5:30. I invite everybody to come along. My name is Andy Schaller. I'm the Republican candidate, and I will be on the ballot on November 4th. And I ask for your support. Thank you.